It's Wednesday, March 15th, and this is CT Pulse on the HAN network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, and just earlier this week, storm hit, we spoke with Shelton Mayor Mark Loretti about his call for action on fighting back against Governor Malloy's proposed cuts to municipal aid. Josh Fisher and myself spoke with him on Monday. Check out that interview right now. About Governor Daniel Malloy's proposed budget and the cuts it would make to municipal funding, including large portions of money that towns and cities receive through educational cost sharing. Now, a lot of town and city leaders on both sides of the political debate have pushed back on this, Josh, as we've talked about on this show, and we're here today with one of those town CEOs. So welcome to Shelton Mayor Mark Loretti. Happy to have you on, first time on CT Pulse.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, and we're in your city today on Bridgeport Avenue, so happy to talk with you. You recently wrote a piece called No Money, No Mandates. Tell us about that and the thinking behind it.
Well, this is something that really has stuck in the craw of many municipalities for years, so it's not a new subject, but I think that it's more appropriate now than ever just because of the financial condition that Connecticut is in. And people really need to realize that, you know, without your financial health, you can't help anybody. And at the end of the day, when you're facing a $1 billion deficit one year and then it balloons again the following year, you're not getting out of this anytime soon. And there's not any one thing that you can do to fix it. You know, you can't cut your way out of it, and you can't tax your way out of it. So, you know, the logical thing that the people have to understand is the impact that mandates have on municipalities, particularly these special interest mandates that serve few people, or mandates that just don't work at all and cost you money. I mentioned one with respect to the prevailing wage. You know, the government wants to tell us how much we should have to pay for labor to do a project. Why bid it? You know, what's the point? If someone's willing to do it cheaper for the same specification, why wouldn't you let that happen? But in Connecticut, we have a prevailing wage rate that impacts us. And it impacts every municipality because they all do school building projects, as an example.
Right, and that is all, and based on how much you spend too, is how much money the state wants to give you back for that too, which you have to compete for also with Hartford, right? So what are some of the other, so when you talk about no mandates, no money, just to be clear, you're telling Hartford that you don't want to, if they're gonna cut like the educational cost sharing, for example, and other things from the money that comes to Shelton, you don't want to have to follow the mandates. Do you have any actual plans not to meet the mandates of the state?
Well, first of all, no one can follow all the mandates. There are so many of them. I think sometimes they pick and choose which ones that they want to follow or not follow for their own political expediency.
Right.
But at the end of the day, no one can adhere to all the mandates. The mandates cost money. And, you know, if they want to lessen regulations or mandates, if they want to lessen some of the regulations, that will save money. One of the mandates that a lot of boards of education around the state take issue with is one with respect to special education, and it's the one about burden of proof, where the municipality has to prove that they don't have to pay a certain or provide a certain service for a special ed child. Everywhere else in the country, it's a level playing field. You know, I say to people all the time that with respect to teacher salaries, and I'm not opposed to what teachers make, but the binding arbitration in the labor negotiation is detrimental, because binding arbitration says that it's based on your ability to pay. So how do you win that one? If we've worked hard, we've done everything that we're supposed to do to make our communities financially solvent, and we're being penalized because we do the right thing. You know, municipalities can't sustain these types of things. And further, you know, when you're the highest paid in your field in the nation, as teachers are in Connecticut, and okay with that, why do you need binding arbitration? You know, another example of a mandate.
Right.
Some people could argue the reason why they're the highest paid, though, is because of binding arbitration.
Well,
right?
that's exactly right. You know, and the governor makes the case with respect to teachers' pensions that, you know, because Greenwich can pay whatever they want, you know, their teachers are retiring at a greater rate of pay, so the pensions are higher. Well, if you didn't have binding arbitration that said, because you have a high ability to pay, you're not going to win the dispute at the labor board. So you're just going to wind up paying.
Right.
This is a double-edged sword. What are you talking about?
Now, Mayor Loretti, this is 26 years in office for you now as Shelton mayor. That sound right?
This is.
And you're a Republican, and so you've seen a lot of state budgets over the years. Do you think anything's different about this cycle? Do you see anything possibly changing this time around?
Well, what's different about it is there's a recognition that we're not doing the right things and we're not managing money properly. This has been going on for a number of years. It just didn't pop up.
Right.
So people need to understand that there's a history behind how we got to this point. And look at it. If we don't take the medicine, we're not going to have the cure. And the governor talks about shared sacrifice. The shared sacrifice, if you're pushing people who have the ability to pay out of the state, like the wealth of Fairfield County, because you have things like an estate tax. It's not a mandate, but it's a tax, which is another form. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense at all, because those people are taking their wealth out of Connecticut, they're going somewhere else, 6 months in a day. They're retaining their residence here in Connecticut because they still recognize the beauty of Connecticut and the quality of life here. So they want to have a presence here, and their families are here, and they have the ability to do that. And yet, they wonder in Hartford why the revenues aren't projecting. That's one reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you talk about the state budget deficit, there are many things that have to happen. One big thing that could happen that the legislature is unwilling to do is lessen some of the mandates or evaluate the mandates to see what's productive, what's not productive, and modify them. They don't even do that. Teachers' pension, as an example. They should recognize that teachers' new hires have to go on a different formula because the old formula is not sustaining. And it's unfair to do that to everybody who pays into the system.
Right. And you've seen a number of municipalities do that by no longer having a pension for their new employees. They do a 401k, just like most businesses do.
Yeah, it's about a defined contribution,
right?
Not a defined benefit.
Yeah.
Right.
In Shelton, our pensions are 100% funded.
Wow.
People are guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of comfort here.
And you've been able to keep taxes relatively low. That's one of the things you hear about Shelton all the time. Would you say you are the definition in a lot of ways of a fiscal conservative, sometimes maybe criticized by the people on the educational side, maybe for not funding enough? I mean, what do you kind of say to some of those criticisms?
Well, what's enough?
Right.
When isn't enough? I said to a group the other night, our student enrollment is down by 900 pupils since 2009, and yet the Board of Education request is either 1 million or 2 million more every year. How is that sustainable, and how is that fair? That to me defies logic. How could it be that you have almost 2 schools that you can eliminate, but yet the request is that much every year, and they can't teach kids if they don't get that money? I don't subscribe to that. I never have. And we have to come to terms with, yes, we have to spend money. Yes, we have to pay our personnel. But quite honestly, I think that we need to get government out of the classroom, let teachers teach, let administrators do their job, and hold them accountable.
And now you have discussed running potentially for governor as a Republican. This has come up in the past. What made you kind of want to throw your hat in the ring again?
Well, I'll be an announced candidate come April of this year.
Okay.
I'll be filing the paperwork for the office of governor. There'll be no exploration for me. There's nothing for me to explore at this point in time.
You've explored it all.
Like some other folks, but that's okay. Look, I got involved because I thought I could make a difference. Got involved 26 years ago. I think that Shelton has really become an oasis in Connecticut of what Connecticut used to look like. We are a community that's thriving. We're growing. We haven't raised taxes in 8 years. And why is that? Because we've been responsible. We stood up to the public and said, no, we're not doing this, but here's what we're going to do. And we've gotten results. There's over 1,500 businesses that reside in Shelton. It wasn't like that 26 years ago. And on any given day, 25,000 people commute into our town. We've become an employment hub, and that's the reason that I tell you these things. So, you know, the reason that we've been able to hold taxes down is because we have grown our grand list. And, you know, there's a lot of moving parts to that, but, we've been able to put an effective team in place here in Shelton, and one that understands what the goals and the missions are, and we carry it out. And so, you know, unfortunately, Hartford has not.
What would a Governor Loretti do about the, in Connecticut for at least, since Governor Rell, at least her second term, every 2 years we hear about these growing deficits in the budget. What would a Governor Loretti do to stop that bleeding that we see every year or two?
Well, as I said earlier, you have to control the cost of living and doing business in the state of Connecticut. If you have to pay businesses to stay here, something's wrong.
Right.
We haven't given one tax incentive in 26 years to get companies to stay here. Yet we had two big major companies move in from a couple miles away. One is Unilever and the other is United Healthcare. You have to ask yourself, why would they move 5 miles away to come into your community? Because they recognize that Shelton is predictable, it's stable, and it's affordable with a good quality of life. And so those are the things that you have to provide for people. But it's got to be affordable. Our seniors are leaving, our businesses are leaving, and our young kids, when they graduate college, many of them cannot come back here because they can't find a job, number one. And number two, the cost of living is too high. And so those are the things that we have to deal with. We have to reverse the negative trend. And it can be done.
But so how is there, do you have an example of how you could do that as governor?
Well, we talked about many things already early in this program. We talked about tax stability. You can't tax your way out of it.
Right.
We talked about the mandates, mandate relief. And quite honestly, when major companies like GE pick up and leave, it's very damaging because it sends shock waves through the business world, wanting to know why that happens. And you can't let that happen.
Yeah.
So it's many things that have to be done. It's not any one single thing. There's no magic to this. There's some pain and suffering that's going to go along with it. But if you don't make those tough choices, we're going to continue in this downward spiral that we're in.
Now, Mayor Loretti, just kind of a more local issue here in Shelton. Shelter Ridge was approved last week by Shelton's Planning and Zoning. Some people calling it the largest development in Fairfield County history. There was a lot of neighbor pushback, but what are your thoughts on that proposal going through that development?
Well, Bridgeport Avenue was carved out many years ago for development in our community, and that's what we're doing. And it's a little disappointing that people don't recognize that this is an area of development, and nothing stays the same. Change is a constant thing in life, and while they don't like change, they have to recognize that the change that has occurred here has been very positive for our community. And quite honestly, if people don't like what's going on Bridgeport Avenue, they don't have to come here. If you look at the demographics of how Bridgeport Avenue is laid out, it impacts very little in terms of where you live. The other point that I would make to the naysayers is that our Planning and Zoning Commission, through 6 months of public hearings, has listened to people, and they have taken their lead on some of these things. Is it 100% of what they want? No, but it's never going to be. But I think that if you look at the history of how we have developed Bridgeport Avenue, there has been a good meld and mixing of residential areas that border on our commercial areas. And one that, quite frankly, that has worked. And I have every confidence that this one will work as well.
Well, as someone who commutes to Shelton, and have now for the past 2 years, I think Bridgeport Avenue is great. It's super convenient to get here. I love watching the traffic get stuck in the other direction as I come up from southern Fairfield County, and I've enjoyed working in your city for the past couple of years.
Well, thank you. I think you might remember that I mentioned earlier that Shelton has become an employment hub.
Right, yeah.
Part of it is because of our location, and we have a reverse commute, and we should take advantage of that, and we're doing that.
Yeah.
So, Connecticut is, at the end of the day, is a great place to live and run a business and work, and we've got to maintain that integrity for our state. And unfortunately, Hartford has failed us, and quite honestly, for a number of years.
Well, if you want to read more on Mayor Loretti's No Money, No Mandates, it's at sheltonherald.com. Also a piece on there about teacher pensions by Mayor Loretti, so check it out. And Mayor Loretti, thanks so much for joining us today.
It was my pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks again to Shelton Mayor Mark Loretti for talking with us earlier this week. If you missed that interview, of course, you can check it out on Facebook, as we did it on Facebook Live on HAN Network Broadcasting and on demand at HAN.network. We're going to step out for a break, and when we come back, it's time to draw some conclusions with our editorial cartoonist, Doug Smith, after this.
At the Milford Bank, we offer an extensive selection of lending products and services to meet virtually any need. Submit your application online in our Mortgage Web Center. Start to finish, you can apply for a loan in as little as 10 minutes. Our knowledgeable and helpful staff are available to meet with you at your convenience. Learn more about what we can do for you. Stop by one of our Milford Bank offices or visit us at milfordbank.com. The Milford Bank, always there. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
On time, done right, safe and reliable. MrHandymanCT.com.
Let our satisfied customers tell it.
I have called Mr. Handyman for every reason, every occasion, every broken item, every leak. They have bailed me out on many occasions, and I would recommend them to anyone.
For any project, large or small.
MrHandymanCT.com.
When it comes to your outdoor spaces, just imagine the possibilities. Whether your dream is a stunning freeform pool or a tranquil, secluded garden, the professionals at Stonebridge Associates will make it a reality. We offer unparalleled landscape design and construction, masonry development, pools, spas, and water features, even landscape maintenance. No other firm can offer the same level of creativity, quality, and personal attention. Discover the possibilities at stonebridgeassociates.net or call 203-544-8376 today. Have a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Basketball, hockey, skiing, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark Building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
We told Dad he could have his office back if he sold 150 cars last month.
Deal's a deal.
Well, Dad, you did it. You get your office back.
Forget it. I'm having too much fun down here. My new goal, 160 cars. Wow. Folks, if you ever wanted a great price on a new Nissan, now is the time.
Right now, lease a 2017 Altima 2.5S for only $99 a month.
Isn't it time you got Millerized?
I'm Frank Granito.
And I'm Donald Ing for the HAN Network.
Tune in to Nutmeg Sports Monday through Thursday, where we bring you all the top stories from Connecticut sports.
From highlights to player interviews and expert analysis, no one gets you closer to Connecticut's games than Nutmeg Sports.
Nutmeg Sports, now Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. on the HAN Network.
Welcome back to CT Pulse, and of course St. Patrick's Day is almost here, so Doug Smith is drawing conclusions, and he's being very festive with that.
Oh yeah, wearing all the green.
You look very disinterested by all the action happening at that bar.
After 7 pints of Guinness, I guess I just don't care anymore.
All right, well, let's get into Doug's cartoons this week. So tell us about this one.
Oh, that's in Milford. I guess the cemetery, they built a retaining wall of some sort there, but they didn't tell anyone about it. They chopped down all the trees and suddenly erected this giant 6-foot wall made out of concrete.
So you're thinking maybe they built it to keep out
exactly
potential zombie
keep
invasion.
People out, but keep something in.
That's the spirit. Now this next one is brilliant because there's 2 things. Shelton Intermediate School robotics team is amazing. They win all kinds of awards.
Oh, I know. They're always knocking out those robots and
yes,
going over the country doing exhibits.
It's amazing.
So I combined it with the Shelter Ridge project. The Save Our Shelton people were against it. So maybe he can get the kids somehow to help them out.
Yeah, use those robots to destroy the development, 121 acres. And up next, tell us about this one.
Oh, just the crazy weather we've had the past couple weeks, you know. Warm, cold, warm, cold. So
It really has been insane. That's a
it's
good
almost
one.
as crazy as the stock market.
Up next, we have another festive one, driving the snakes out of
yes.
Ireland.
Yep.
Now, did you used to use a taxi with this one, or is this a new one that was Uber?
I did one like 12 years ago with St. Patrick with all the snakes in the car with him, and I
Nice.
just figured I'd update it and throw a little Uber on
Now
there.
Uber's in there. Very
Right?
timely. All right. Well, Doug, as always, thanks so much. Great
Okay.
cartoons this
Thank
week.
you.
Really appreciate it. And before we wrap things up on CT Pulse, just want to give a shout out to Josh Fisher. We'll miss his sometimes brilliant and always witty insight on CT Pulse and HAN Network in general. Wishing him the best. And, you know, he's a great follow on Twitter at Fishger. If you want to keep following his political insights there. Thanks again. That's going to do it for today. We will see you for CT Pulse next Wednesday at 12:30, and you could catch us on demand anytime. Nutmeg Sports coming up at 2 o'clock today.